Today, it's February the 18th. These are some of the few rare days that many of us, especially those in the government, would rather not comment on it. Both the colonial government and the independent Kenyan government. February 18, 1957 is when Field Marshal Dedan Kimathi Washiuri was hanged at Kamiti. I have said elsewhere in this channel, and I will repeat, that anybody trying to look for Dedan Kimathi's grave is wasting his or her time. Remember, the government that was in power when he was hanged, what did they feel about him? To them, he was a terrorist. Hata walimuongezea, imagine he was walking and he had raised his hands, but then the home guard and the tribal police, home guards are still there. They are nowadays called NPR, police reservist. Tribal police is now called administration police. These two officers, even after he had raised his hands, they still shot him. And judiciary, if you are sick, even if you are a criminal of the highest standard, if you are sick, the proceedings are stopped until you recover. But him, walimuongezea ngozi ya chui, calling him a poacher, and they even took him to court while he still had bullet wounds. He was hanged on February 18th, 1957. And since the colonial government treated him as a terrorist, obviously they could not want his grave to be known. It would be unmarked. And for those of you who have been around, just imagine where you are 40 years ago. Go back to where you are 40 years ago. That is 1984. With the new development, subdivision of land and everything, new high-rise buildings coming up, you'll discover that it is hard to trace a spot. So that is the original February 18th in Kenya. Some freedom fighters would really want that day to be commemorated, but it took the third president, Emilio Mwai Ohwa Kibaki, to recognize Mau Mau as freedom fighters. But previously they used to be treated as though they were a criminal element. For those of you who are young, Mau Mau was being treated the way we treat Shifta, Goroko, or even Al-Shabaab. Now, in 1995, around January, something happened. Around January, and you see, Kenya is open. Kenya is open that today you can say things freely, and it is me who is saying so. There was some time when you could talk a tenth of what I'm saying And you'd be lucky if you are jailed for 10 to 15 years. If you are unlucky, utakuwa mboga ya fisi. And in those days, during Kenyatta's time, and especially during Moi's time, the first item, if it is a news item, the first quarter of time would be spent praising the president where he was, saying that he was in this and that place on a busy, it was always busy working tour, where he met halaiki ya Wakenya ambao walikuwa wamefurahi kwa shangwe na vigelegele. So they would spend a quarter of the allocated time and it is the first quarter on talking on the president. Then in January, February, somewhere there, the president went dump for more than a week. Rumors started flying left and right and whatever. But also, my home area, Lwandeti, when you leave Lwandeti on your way to Lugari, the first place you pass is a place called Mayoyo. Mayoyo, during the time when Moi was silent for a week. Imagine the president being silent for a week. It brought national tension. There's a young man who, around that time, asked for permission to go and see the president. And he was not granted permission, but the information reached Moi. You know, Moi, any village rumor, it used to reach him. He was occupied with gathering intelligence that could even not be of national interest. Some of the, like he knew that his nephew, Peter Kibiego Lagat, used to openly flatter with the wife of one of the MPs in Kapenguria. I'll not mention the name of the MP. If you are in Kapenguria in the 80s, you know who that MP is. And Mo even knew that, and whenever they would meet with his nephew, Peter Kibiego Lagat, he would say, have you returned that woman? I mean, these are some of the things that it is an embarrassment even to me to discuss them, because Moi would follow some of these very minor things. So this young man at Mayoyo said that he wanted to see Moi, and his information went to Moi. And he told Moi that anybody from Lwandeti, anybody from Webuye area can, in the comment section, can tell me the name of that young man. He's now in his mid 40, I'm approaching 50 now. He told Moi not to cross River Nzoia towards Panpepa, but it is said that Moi ignored that, because Moi used to get a lot of fitina, some of which were just plain stupid. And he crossed there. On the day he crossed there, it is alleged that some people had slaughtered a domestic animal and placed it on the road just uphill at a place called Shaban or something. And the vehicle went through. During Kenyatta's time, the limousine was photographed several times while stuck in the mud, and Kenyatta would go out and tell people, Harambe, push, push, push. But during Moi's time, the one and only time that the limousine was seen to be struck was after crossing that place. That young man from my village was given a government permission for ghost busting. He would go around, and he was even quoted, and he would even walk around with the chiefs and whatever. He used to go around, and this is what people used to do. As a village, you could contribute something, send it to him, then he would come to that village. The day he was supposed to come to our village, my stepmother, whom I knew, she was very good in maneno ya nini, she was absent. So this young man had predicted that Moi would have a problem. He had predicted that Moi would have a problem, and when Moi passed through that place, he spent over a week while out of limelight. At the same time, we now came to learn of a new guerrilla movement that was called FERA, February 18th Revolutionary Army. It was headed by Brigadier John Odongo. Brigadier John Odongo, that was not his real name. His real name was Stephen Ochieng Amukoe. Stephen Ochieng Amukoe. But he called himself Brigadier, and that was the military wing, was called FERA, February 18th Revolution Army. The political arm was called FEM, February 18 Movement, and the leader of the political arm was none other than Patrick Wangamati. Patrick Wangamati, his son, later became the governor for Bungoma. If you look closely, because Moi was accusing Museveni of propping up this FERA to overthrow the Moi government. Now, whether this FERA was, during Moi's time, there used to be this tactic of calling a small thing very big, like Mwakenya. If you go into reality, Mwakenya was just a paper tiger. But you see, if all the time people are being rounded up and the government is always talking about, then Mwakenya became bigger. To me, I would say it's like holding a cup or a glass, and then you put on your torch next to the cup or glass. The shadow will be so big as compared to the size of the glass or cup. So that is how, in his propaganda, Moi would even make smaller groups be large groups. That is how FERA became to be. But if you look at the organization, I know Museveni was training Kenyans. My personal friend, Wafula Buke, among the few people who have my telephone number, Wafula Buke has it. Wafula Buke and others were trained in guerrilla welfare and military welfare in Uganda by Museveni. That is true. But people like FERA, how can 108 people overthrow a government? I mean, and they were supposed to, and they were, and even those people who are being arrested and whatever, their stories were never consistent. Mara sijui they were being trained in Tororo, Mara they were being trained in Nyankole and whatever. But if you see it, the organizational background of FERA was just like NRA. For NRA, Museveni had NRA, National Resistance Army, which he was the leader, and then there was NRM. And I'm very sure even people of my age do not know this. The National Resistance Army, the military wing, was headed by Museveni. Then there was the National Resistance Movement, where Museveni was the acting chairman. It is only after the NRM had taken over Uganda that he was confirmed as the chairman. Now, who was the chairman? The chairman of National Resistance Movement was none other than His Excellency President Yusuf Lule. Now you know it. Kimbia kwa till number. So that is how NRM was. The military side was headed by Museveni, and the political side was headed by Yusuf Lule. Now, when you look at FERA in Kenya, the military side was headed by Brigadier Odongo, and the political side was headed by Wankamati. And you see, Paul Kagame, when he left Riruta satellite and went to Uganda, he was the head of the intelligence, and that is how they came and formed their RPF, Rwanda Patriotic Front. Rwanda Patriotic Front is an army that branched off from NRA, and Paul Kagame, for Luya we say Hakame. Paul Hakame became, at first he was the vice president, where he was the vice president, where the president was Bizimungu and the prime minister was Twagiramungu. Bizimungu tunaamini Mungu, Twagiramungu tunaachia yote Mungu. I know Kinyarwanda. I even know Kirundi. Mugenzi, murakumeye, amahoro. That is Kirundi. NRA, FERA was a paper tiger. Was a paper tiger that when Moi demanded that Brigadier Okello be brought to Kenya, Museveni refused. As I've said above, I said that FERA and FAM was tailored along the NRA and Rwanda Patriotic Front. And when Museveni was being asked to surrender Brigadier John Odongo to Kenya, he said that he could not do it because John Odongo was among the founder members of the NRA in 1972. You'll find that in Uganda, for a president to rule for a long time, he has to rely on foreigners. Museveni relied on Kina Odongo from Kenya. He also relied on Kina Hakame from Rwanda. And Amin relied on the Nubians to keep him going. So as we commemorate the unannounced public holiday of February 18, we complete with the 18 minutes of remembrance of that day. Thank you.